Dick, I won't ask you your age because, like me, you wear a few wrinkles. But as somebody who maybe has a little bit more experience than His Royal Highness there beside you, what have you learnt? What are you taking away with you as a commitment?
Well, thank you. I think I'm about second to last here, so if it's between me and adjournment, I'll try and be somewhat quick. First of all, there's no way I could not thank Al Gore and Mary Robinson for all they have done for our efforts. Over the years, I've started 3 different institutions. It all started with as a climber in the Himalayas, and we started something called the American Himalayan Foundation 30 years ago. We have today 175 different projects. By the way, we have one big fundraiser a year, and when Al Gore shows up, we fill the house.
Not surprised.
You know how many ideas came from us versus the villages? None. Every single project we've ever funded started in the villages. And so, you know, to have a conference where you're trying to, I was wondering all these years, were we doing something wrong because we only listen to villages? There's another thing about it that maybe people aren't talking about. When you're in a village, it is very hard to steal unless you want to leave the village, because they're going to know if you steal. If the money is going to the ministers, and maybe this is a reflection of many years in Nepal, where we've run into this problem of time and time again, but it's also elsewhere. I really think those who talked about the funds going to the districts, to the villages, are really quite correct. Carbon tax, absolutely. Women, certainly. That's where I think you need to start. Now, I have a wife who is a U.S. Senator, so I'm influenced, but I've also seen that when you motivate women, you can save the world. The second thing that, and Mary Robinson has for 10 years come to our Brookings Center in Aspen, which so far during the summer climate change has not affected, and so we do have good weather there. And Mary has been a co-chair of that dialogue year after year, and she's never missed a beat. So thank you also, Mary. Last but not least, I started a center at the University of California at Berkeley. Believe it or not, at a university like Berkeley, and this is now true for all 10 campuses, you could take a course as an undergraduate on music appreciation or anything else you want. You couldn't learn about global poverty. So we started a Center for Global Poverty about 7 years ago. Al Gore was there when we built a new building, and the first piece of earth that was overturned was done by Al, so thank you for that as well, Al. Today, we have had 7,000 students through our classes. We are now expanding it to the other 10 campuses. We've also included a couple of foreign campuses. So what we've learned is the youth of today in the developing world really cares about these issues. The other thing I would talk about is leverage. Government can't do everything. They don't either have the funds to do it or necessarily the intellectual ability to cover all the bases. So along with our center at Berkeley, we started a Center for Innovation, which included Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory and our School of Engineering. And so we've come up with a lot of the things you know about. We claim we have the world's best cook stove. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but it's a good one. We have ultraviolet water systems. We have now a cell scope that can read a slide and transmit to a doctor anywhere, whether someone has one of 4 or 5 diseases. We're doing a lot of work with cell phones on transferring payments and so forth. But the interesting thing about it in terms of leverage is the AID discovered what we were doing. has now started a Center for the Agency for International Development in Washington. Of the $20 billion of pure aid, this leaves aside Israel and Egypt and Pakistan and Afghanistan, almost none of it was spent on innovation. Rajiv Shah, who runs AID, who many of you may know, has taken to this. They have, in this last year, committed $150 million to different universities. Thankfully, we were probably at the top of the list. And the leverage is to get ideas from faculty and kids, put them on a website, work to see what else comes up. It also includes places like MIT and Duke and so forth. And we find that we think other universities overseas are going to do that as well. So there's a whole knowledge base out there that needs to be collected. So if you all want to know what we're doing about water projects in Myanmar, you can look it up on the website. The other leverage really is, I think I was identified when I walked in the room this morning that there was nobody here from the private sector until I walked in. But I looked around, they said I raised it to 1%. I don't think it's 1%, but anyhow, there is a lot more you can do with the private sector than what you're doing now. But you got to understand that you have to get risk-adjusted returns to the private sector. Someone here who's been both at Gates and Google, you're naming two unusual corporations that really spending a lot of money trying to do the right thing. But you should have much more involvement. And we tried to work out with the IFC of the World Bank because we were the first private equity people in Asia, a mitigation scheme where they would it'd be risk sharing. They'd guarantee us that we couldn't lose all our money and we give them some of the upside. None of that has ever really started in a major way, but there are billions of dollars out there that can be directed towards the developing world if you do that. Just between San Francisco, where I live, and San Jose, those corporations in cash have close to $1 trillion. Most of it just sitting there. There's no reason why it shouldn't be dealing with climate change, dealing with developing all the issues from new crops and so forth that you're talking about. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you very much indeed.